Hello and welcome back to yet another video on the Alejandro Hernandez podcast. And today I'm going to be giving you guys my official NBA Finals predictions between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. But before I get into my prediction of that series, let's first recap the conference finals. I had the Timberwolves winning in 6 over the Oklahoma City Thunder. That obviously did not play out the way I expected it to. I had said that I expected Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards to outplay Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Wind up being the exact opposite. Shai and J-Dub had an excellent series. On top of that, Chet was also a huge reliable third option for the Thunder that wasn't there the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Chet kind of came out of nowhere and really dominated this series, which was huge for the Thunder. And I believe it's really shift the transition that we're witnessing in the NBA of brilliant roster construction and great coaching being an advantage over just superstars. And it's a huge transition that we're witnessing, and it's favoring the OKC Thunder right now, which is probably going to guide them into winning an NBA championship for the first time in franchise history. But first, let's recap the series. I thought that the Timberwolves were going to match up with OKC defensively. I thought Jaden McDaniels would hold his own against Shai. Obviously, that did not play out the way I expected it to. Shai really dominated whatever matchup that was thrown at him. He was able to get to his spot consistently. And on top of that, he had his second option, Jalen Williams, played pretty consistently throughout the series. The only really off game that everyone on OKC had was Game 3 in Minnesota, which they kind of conceded from the very get-go. They didn't really show up in the first quarter, and from there they threw in the towel, and that game ended up losing by 40. But the other 4 games after that, OKC really dominated from start to finish, especially their 3 home games. And honestly, they really caught me by surprise. Their defense was absolutely smothering on Anthony Edwards. Alex Caruso proved to be probably, I think this playoffs, Alex Caruso has been the best defender throughout this entire playoffs. He's guarded pretty much 1 through 5. He's been able to guard Jokic in the second round of the playoffs. He was being a pest to John Morant in the first round, and Desmond Bane. He was excellent on also Jaren Jackson Jr. He was guarding him well in that series. And then in the conference finals, he was able to hold his own against Anthony Edwards one-on-one whenever he'd sub in and be tasked to guard Anthony Edwards. He was able to wear him down all series, along with Lou Dort. OKC just has so many guys to throw at superstars, such as in the second round, they were able to throw a ton of guys at Jokic. In the first round, obviously, they overwhelmed the Grizzlies with John Morant and Desmond Bane. And in the conference finals, they were able to wear down Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards. And honestly, as watching this series, I was very disappointed with the performance of Julius Randle. I believe he kind of reverted back to the same guy that we've seen in previous playoff runs, when he kind of tends to just be disengaged. In Game 5, in the winner go home game, the elimination game, Game 5 against the Thunder this series, he just looked disengaged. There would be turnovers, and he'd simply stay in the front in the backside of the court and just watch as his team tracked back in transition. He would not track back in transition. It was really disappointing to watch, as he was the co-star in the Timberwolves playoff run throughout the first round and the second round. He was playing at a very high level, and I think the first time he really faced adversity, he just didn't respond. He pretty much gave up on his team, which was really, I'm assuming the Timberwolves must have seen that, the players must have seen that, the coaches must have seen that, and the game was lost from the first quarter on. He was having very careless turnovers. It looked like the Julius Randle playoffs of the past, which I really wasn't expecting, as he had kind of killed that narrative throughout the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. I was expecting that same Julius Randle, but he reverted back to the old Julius Randle in this series, which obviously they needed him to play at that supreme level he was playing in rounds 1 and 2 if they even wanted a shot at winning this series, which I thought he would. It ended up going the complete opposite direction as Julius Randle reverted back to his old playoff self. Now, with Anthony Edwards, I believe that he pretty much struggled this series with the amount of bodies that were being thrown at him. He was being a great playmaker in rounds 1 and 2, and then in game 4, I believe it was, he only scored 18 points. He was pretty much shut down offensively, only took 2 shots in the first half of game 4, and that was really the swing game of this series. Had the Timberwolves won that series, they're going back 2-2 to OKC, guaranteeing them a game 6 at home in Minnesota. But Anthony Edwards really struggled in that game 4 to get going offensively in terms of scoring the ball. And in that post-game interview, he mentioned how he just wanted to make the right play every single time, kicking it out to the open players. But if the Timberwolves want to be taken to the next level, if he wants to reach the pinnacle, which is the NBA Finals, he's going to have to adjust his game, and he's going to have to be able to take over games the way Shai takes over games. And obviously, Shai and Ant are being compared to each other because Ant was interviewed by Stephen A. Smith a while back, and when he was asked if he was a better player than Shai and Luka, he said, "Hell yeah." Well, you got to back up that talk. But obviously, he's receiving a lot of media criticism about how everyone wants to see the next face of the NBA, and people are anointing that to Anthony Edwards. Obviously, he disappointed in the conference finals, but I believe he's just really ahead of the curve. He's only 23 years old, and he's already reached back-to-back conference finals. Jokic, Giannis, LeBron, all of those guys didn't win championships or even reach the finals till they were in their mid to high 20s. I believe Giannis was 26 when he reached his first finals. Jokic was 27. LeBron was 26 when he won his first finals. So it takes time. It takes a lot of development. It takes a lot of playoff losses to then reach the NBA finals. And people are putting these lofty expectations on Anthony Edwards to do that at a very young age. So he still has plenty of time. And in the post-game presser, he obviously revealed that he knows he has time. But for guys like Mike Conley, they don't have time. Mike Conley's at the very, very end of his career. So he was sad for Mike Conley that he couldn't get to get him to the NBA Finals. But aside from that, I believe it's too early to just completely kill Anthony Edwards and say that he's never gonna reach his team to the NBA Finals, because he's still got a long way to go in his career. And I believe the Timberwolves are going to rebuild. They might have to move off Rudy Gobert. They might have to move off Julius Randle and build around Anthony Edwards better if they want a chance at reaching the NBA Finals, as they keep meeting that roadblock of the Western Conference Finals in back-to-back years. Enough talk about Minnesota. Let's talk about OKC. They were spectacular in this series. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the rightful MVP. He is the MVP of the league. He's had an unbelievable season. Honestly, I think it was kind of foolish for me to bet against him in this series. OKC was just absolutely dominant at home all three games from start to finish. Their home crowd is serious, and honestly, it's a testament to just how small markets are really progressing in the NBA now. We have two small markets in the NBA Finals, which if you would have told me that at the beginning of the playoffs, I would have never guessed that. In my tiers, I had OKC as a NBA Finals appearance or bust, so I probably should have followed through with that in my prediction of picking them over the Wolves. But I simply thought that in the second round there were a ton of upsets. I thought making a bold prediction would have played out the way that it should have, but it didn't. OKC dominated the series from start to finish. Shai was brilliant. J-Dub was brilliant. Chet was a surprising performer in this series. He was scoring in very critical moments. He was making timely three-point shots. He was an absolute beast in the paint, blocking shots. He played excellent on both ways. Then you have the bench players such as Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace. Obviously, Lou Dort defensively has been outstanding. This OKC team is dominant, and they're honestly on a trajectory to be an all-time great team. I believe they're top three in wins combined in the regular season and postseason all time, with the 73-9 Warriors and the Chicago Bulls in 1996. So this is a legendary team, and I probably should have taken that into account before I bet it against them. And you guys will be seeing who I pick in the NBA Finals, but I'm going to give OKC their respect. I'm going to give them their flowers. They were the absolute favorite to win this series, and they're an overwhelming favorite to win the finals. So yeah, now let's pivot to Pacers-Knicks. I had the Knicks winning in 7. I had said that this was going to be a dogfight. This was going to be a 6 or 7 game series. I had predicted the New York Knicks to win in 7 because I thought Jalen Brunson would outperform Tyrese Halliburton. And I've betted against the Pacers all 3 rounds this playoffs, and they have burned me all 3 rounds, which is just insane. They've kind of been on a Cinderella run, but in terms of just not getting respect they actually deserve. They've flown way under the radar because I believe they're a small market. Had this Indiana team been located in Boston, had they been located in New York, they'd obviously be getting way more hype than they've gotten this entire playoffs. But they gentlemen swept the Cavs pretty handedly, and the Cavs were the number 1 seed. They rolled through Milwaukee in 5, and then they really did not struggle with the Knicks at all in this series. And it really didn't come down to talent. It came down to just simple discipline, coaching, and execution. They just simply out-executed the Knicks all series. And it's a testament to Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle is a Hall of Fame coach. He's an excellent, excellent coach. I probably should have taken that into account when betting against them all 3 series. But this is definitely a learning experience for me, this whole NBA playoffs. It's my first time really intensely watching the NBA playoffs. So a lot to learn and a lot to take away from probably next year's time when these predictions come around. Now I'm going to take a lot away from these series that I've been predicting and take way more things into account, such as coaching. Rick Carlisle is a way superior coach to Tom Thibodeau, and that really showed in this series when it came down to pivotal stretches of the game, such as late game execution in Game 1. I believe this series was won and lost in Game 1 when the Indiana Pacers went into New York, down 17 in the fourth quarter, and snatched it away from the New York Knicks with awesome three-point shooting by Aaron Nesmith. He was possessed in that fourth quarter, making 6 straight threes. I'd never seen anything like that in my entire life watching in the NBA. It was ridiculous. The Knicks had that game won. The Pacers ripped their heart out. Tyrese Halliburton ripped their heart out. The choke celebration, obviously, was the main takeaway from that game. But yeah, Tyrese Halliburton came to play in this series. And I believe he's a superstar in the making. People are kind of flip flopping on whether he should be anointed a superstar, whether it's too early or we need to see more out of him. I think we've seen enough. Back to back conference finals appearances. He's the leader of this team. He's the engine of their offense. I believe he was robbed of Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And that's no criticism to Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam had an amazing series. He had multiple 30-point games. He was probably the more consistent player in this series compared to Halliburton. But I believe what makes a conference finals MVP is who really won and lost games for the Pacers. And in games 1 and 4, probably the two most pivotal games of the series, Halliburton took over. In game 4, he was the first player to ever have a 30, 15, and 10 game with no turnovers, which is just unprecedented. We've never seen that before. The only players to have a 30, 15, and 10 game in the playoffs are Wilt Chamberlain, or it might have been Oscar Robertson, and Nikola Jokic. So Tyrese Halliburton put himself in the history books this series. And then in game 1, just when his team needed him, he showed up. And honestly, I think it's more of giving the Pacers credit than discrediting the Knicks, because the Knicks really weren't expected to make it this far. I believe they overperformed. So did the Pacers, but the Pacers really earned their respect throughout this playoffs. And the Knicks, I would say they were a little bit overrated after winning the Celtics series. I believe the Celtics series was their NBA Finals. When they beat Boston, they were on top of the world because they had just defeated the current defending champions. And that was their finals, and they came out, I wouldn't say they came out flat, but I believe they probably came out a little bit cocky against the Pacers, and that's what led to them choking away game 1. And then in game 2, the Pacers once again took them by surprise, went into MSG and beat them again on their home court, and the series was lost from that point. And let's talk about Jalen Brunson. He was obviously scoring 30 night in, night out, but I believe he still did not give his team enough to win this series. And he's a huge liability on the defensive end. So is Karl Anthony Towns. And this is going to be a big offseason for the Knicks in terms of what are they going to do with Cat. Are they going to move off him? Because I know they're not moving off Brunson. Brunson's the face of their franchise. They brought in Cat this season, made it to the conference finals. I'd view it as a successful season for the Knicks, but they're still just not there yet to reach an NBA Finals. They're not entirely well coached, and I believe it's because Karl Anthony Towns is a huge defensive liability. On the drop coverage on screens, the Indiana Pacers abused that. Rick Carlisle, an amazing coach, pinpointed that Cat is a huge defensive weakness, and they attacked him all series long. And in game 6, it was really evident that Cat is just a huge defensive liability. And the Pacers exploited that all series long, and that's what led to them winning the series handedly in 6, was just abusing Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson on defense. And on top of that, while making Jalen Brunson work on defense, on offense, they were guarding him 94 feet. They were sending guys like TJ McConnell, Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nebhard, guarding him 94 feet every single possession, and that began to wear on Brunson, and that's what led ultimately to him gassing out in game 6. He was passing out of every possession in game 6 because of how gassed he was. And ultimately, the Pacers were the better team, the better coach team, and in the big moments, they stole them. They stole the big moments in the biggest moments of this series in games 1 and 4 when games were tight. Halliburton led his team to victory. And yeah, the Pacers 100% deserve to win that series in 6 games, which now brings us to OKC and Indiana in the NBA Finals. Probably the series that nobody would have predicted. I mean, probably OKC was a heavy favorite to win the West, but the Pacers were doubted all playoffs long. I picked against them in round 1. They were a favorite in round 1, but underdogs in both round 2 and 3, winning both series in 5 and 6 games. So the Pacers have been doubted all postseason long. I believe now is the time to give them the respect that they deserve. And let's get into the series prediction. Let's talk about matchups. On the OKC side of the ball, on offense, you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Pacers are going to probably throw as many bodies on them as they can. They're going to throw Aaron Nesmith on him. They're going to throw Nembhard on him. They're going to throw TJ McConnell on him. Just try and rough him up, but I believe Shai is ready for this moment. He is the MVP, and I really think he's going to average above 30-plus points this series. And I really don't think the Pacers are going to have an answer for him the same way. Over time, they did have an answer for Brunson, but although they were throwing everything they could at him, he was still dropping 30 points. So if Brunson was able to do that to them, I can't imagine what Shai's going to do to the Pacers defense. He's probably going to shred them up. They're going to have to throw doubles at him. and then that's going to lead to open kickouts, and that's why the OKC Thunder have J-Dub, they have Chet, they have Luke Dort, they have the perimeter shooting to contend with the Pacers. And I haven't even gotten to OKC's defense yet, but yeah, I do believe Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to dominate the series on the offensive side of the ball. I believe nobody on the Pacers can guard him effectively or can neutralize him effectively. I believe the Pacers will not have an answer for Shai this series. And for J-Dub, he just has to be consistent. He just has to he has to average 20 plus in this series if the OKC Thunder want to coast to an easy finals victory. I believe J-Dub is going to have to show up for in this series, and I believe he's ready for the moment. He proved that in the conference finals. In game 4, he dropped 30 plus. So he is ready for these big moments, and I believe he's going to have a great series, both offensively and defensively. Now, Luke Dort on offense really doesn't provide the Thunder much. I believe it's going to have to be Chet that's going to have to rise up as a third option, and I believe he's ready for the moment as well. He's probably going to be guarded by Pascal Siakam, by Miles Turner, and that's going to be an interesting matchup, seeing Siakam and Turner battle it out against Hartenstein and Chet. And I do believe that OKC does have a huge advantage on the rebounding in this series. Just because of their size, the Pacers are not a good rebounding team. That's why you saw Mitchell Robinson playing such heavy minutes for the Knicks, is because he was a great rebounder, and the Knicks were able to dominate the offensive glass, dominate the defensive glass. I believe that the Thunder are also going to be able to dominate the glass in this series, which is going to pose a lot of problems for the Pacers if they're not making shots, which now we're going to get into now. Let's flip it around. OKC's defense matching up against the Pacers' offense, that is going to be the matchup to look out for. The Pacers are one of the best offenses in the NBA. The Thunder are an all-time great defense. And obviously, it's cliche, but defense does win championships, and I believe that will prevail in this series. I believe OKC's defense is going to smother the Pacers' offense, and Halliburton's going to have to be ready for the challenge. He was averaging over 10 assists in this series against the Knicks, and he's going to have to be no turnovers. He's going to have to limit the amount of turnovers. He's a pretty good guy at taking care of the ball. I believe he averaged under 2 turnovers in the regular season. But OKC is great at causing turnovers, great at getting points in transition. So are the Pacers. So yeah, definitely transition basketball is going to be a huge factor in this series. And whoever wins that margin, whoever wins the turnover margin, is pretty much going to be the deciding factor on who wins these games. And I believe that OKC is going to smother Indiana's offense with ball pressure. And the decision-making across the board from the Pacers is going to have to be pinpoint accurate if they want any shot at winning this series. Obviously, OKC is the overwhelming favorite, and with that being said, I'm going to have the OKC Thunder winning this series in 5 games. I believe they're going to close it out at home. They're probably going to take both at home. Indiana will take Game 3 convincingly, probably in blowout fashion. OKC wins a very tight game in Game 4. They go back to Game 5 and blow them out in Game 5 at home. The OKC Thunder were the overwhelming favorite to win the championship heading into the playoffs, and I believe that will come to pass here in the NBA Finals, as I have the Thunder winning in 5, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being the first player since Steph Curry to win both regular season MVP, Finals MVP, and I think he'd be the first player ever to win both the MVP, Conference Finals MVP, Finals MVP. He'd be the first player in history to do that. So what an incredible season for Shai. And I believe that will come to pass. And that is it for this video, and I will see you guys next time for when I drop my NFL power rankings heading into the 2025 season. I was supposed to drop that video before I dropped this one, but I've been pretty busy, so I will get around to that after the NBA Finals, or maybe even during. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.